Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. So let's go towards the understanding of consumer behavior with respect to the requirement or developing an understanding in terms of innovations in marketing, because somehow we have to understand the response function, that is what is behavior is. I would start from definition given by American Marketing Association in terms of what consumer behavior is, and then I would come to the fundamental element of behavior per se, and then we will try to focus upon, with a loud thinking of sorts, how behavior in due course of time has got its shape. Behavior means our behavior. What has happened that we have started behaving as we are, and then we will structuralize that with respect to some key components or some key stimuli or let us say turning points historically, and then we would go further. So, this is how we would be dwelling into this. Consumer behavior refers to the study of how customers, both individual and organizations, satisfy their needs and wants by choosing, purchasing, using and disposing of goods, ideas and services. That is what American Marketing Association says. You can further dwell into several terms which are related to this definition in their lexicon dictionary and other articles which AMA publishes, and several other journals are there. Now, when you look into this definition, it clearly talks about choices and usage, purchase, usage and disposal of goods, and reflects a response. Behavior largely talks about how we react to or we think about when a stimuli or influence comes on us. In general, broader terms, you can dwell into, there are so many books in psychology and several other disciplines which focus upon human behavior. It is one of the most talked about subjects in the world, why people behave as they do, and many a times there are larger fluctuations in human behavior. Many a times you would find a lot of consistency in human behavior. All of us do remember some of our teachers from our primary stages or primary schooling whose behavior never changed. Everyone has the story of at least one teacher, if I am not wrong, whose behavior never changed. So, come whatsoever. What were those reasons? If you analyze those reasons, you would realize that they sort of had a very consistent flow in terms of what kind of influences and influences they were taking and what kind of stimuli were affecting them. They are also general human beings, they are also consumers, but they have been consistent largely in due course of time. And there are many other professions wherein you would find those kind of people. Soldier always remains a soldier, and so on. Doctors many times remain doctors, but we are talking of, we are going to focus on consumers' behavior, taking a clue from different kinds of influencers. So, profession can be an influence definitely, and I just want you to slightly reflect on that and start from that. If you know people whose behavior never changed, You would find few elders in your family, at least for past 2-3 decades their behavior would not have changed, for example grandparents. So, does it happen that after a particular kind of age behavior never changes, come whatsoever? Is it the stage which we should not be considering in terms of as far as fluctuations and changes of behavior? Can be, but again the point is we are talking of things which affect as far as the behavioral perspective goes. Now look at as far as some central criteria, and I am just working upon this and just go along as far as, and it may be absolutely appealing to you or you may contest this, but it is a thought which I am projecting in front of you, and these kind of things have been taken from several papers and several books. So, I am just trying to give you a composite picture here. If you look at past few decades of our lives, wherever you stand, whichever age group you belong to, or you want to look at someone else's life, whichever age you are looking at. So, you would realize that measurement criteria of whatever we are measuring has gone through a transformation. Just try and think that how are you looking at, for example, in general terms, growth. Someone says that I want to have growth in my life. So, how are you looking at this? Is it related to a composite growth in terms of having good health, peaceful life, wonderful happy environment or something? Happiness index tries to measure that, and that is what many organizations, institutions and countries they are trying to propel. We have good examples from around the world wherein governments they have adopted this kind of a measurement criteria for their population, but here we are referring to what we are doing. So, are we means you and me, both of us or all of us, are we measuring our lives in terms of as far as income goes, for example? Does it mean that if income grows our life is growing, or we are thinking in terms of as far as doing things in a shorter span of time? So, we are focusing upon time, or let us say we are looking at growth in terms of success, which is a composite resultant of income as well as a comparative analysis or parameter always accompanies success. For example, I have a good income, but in comparison to whom? Is that what we are doing as far as whole situation goes? Or success entails having a good education from a very good institution, having a very large income and having a very large good house and a very good car and liberty to travel anywhere you want. Is this the criteria we are looking for? How are we measuring our lives? There is a very interesting report and a book called Mismeasuring Our Lives. You should look into it. So, that is slightly on the side of economics. I am just mentioning that because we are talking about measurement in terms of income and time and so on. So, even are we associating this whole growth scenario or success scenario in terms of income, time, and then as I said what kind of house or car we have, and then how do we look, what places do we visit, what do we wear, and are these related to brands? From where have we purchased this? That means comparative perspective. So, are we trying to measure everything with this kind of a perspective? For example, how fast we can go somewhere in terms of as far as time goes, or let us say how fast our computer works, even if the difference is in terms of some seconds. What is the capacity of as far as the hard drive we have? It makes difference probably to many people if they are using that for that kind of a purpose, but in general terms, are we measuring those kind of things, those possessions we have? Are we measuring that what kind of a large refrigerator we have? Are we measuring in terms of what kind of a cooling our air conditioning does, what kind of brands we have? Are we measuring ourselves in terms of how many windows we have, or we do not have windows in house because we have completely centrally air conditioned house? Are we doing that? Are we measuring the location as a criteria in terms of having a house? Best of the location and posh location or central location, are we doing that? Yes, we are. And that is where measurement becomes an important thing, and criteria for measurement are the most important influencers for us to think in terms of how we would be behaving. For example, today we are gaining education for what? Largely everyone does that for professional gains in terms of having professions which would be high yielding or high paying professions. That is how education from the perspective of a mode for gaining knowledge has shifted towards as far as complete professional perspective goes. Yesterday I was reading somewhere that this year in India the statistics says that top aspirants in the masters in medical sciences, they are not choosing general surgery, which was one of the most sought after branches in medical profession. Somehow they are moving more towards general medicine because that takes them towards different kind of a super specialization, although article did not mention about resulting income and span of income anyways, but in due course of time we have realized that medical profession is also not away from being a benchmark of the income and professional gain at the end of the day. Are we as patients also not affected by the fact that which doctor has a larger number of patients and is a very known doctor in terms of the kind of lifestyle a doctor has? Do we prefer to go to known but very simple doctors who charge less fees nowadays? We do that many times, but are we doing that as a confident practice which we used to do that early? We are also somehow we are measuring doctors in terms of their structures as well as their personal lifestyle as well many times. I am not sure if I am digressing slight, but try and think what we are doing right away. So, that kind of a perspective has gained strength in terms of as far as measurement goes. So, this is one large influencer and a stimuli as far as the whole scenario goes. Now, let us think in terms of, for example, technology, and that is very interesting. You see, in past decade or so, technological perspective also has gained a lot of strength in terms of whole scenario goes. When we talk of technology, so it is an enabler, and it enables several things in terms of how it strengthens us. Today everyone is holding technology in one's hand in terms of mobile phone, and mobile phones has several applications which strengthens. But then it's our these are stimuli and our behavior has changed accordingly in terms of whole of the scenario goes. I can go on and on in terms of as far as technology goes, but I will be taking you towards few key components in terms of communication, connectivity, and I would be specifically focusing on connectivity in subsequent slides when I would be talking of internet enabled kind of situation wherein behavioral response has come up as far as a response to internet, and there is a wonderful article by Professor Jagdish Seth which we would be using in a few minutes from now. So, then communication, connectivity, entertainment. So, entertainment, OTT platforms and several other things, and definitely this is connectivity based or internet based kind of a thing, and it actually is putting up just try and monitor that when these things were not there, what kind of a response function you had in terms of your behavioral response, and now how our behavior is changing. And you would realize that on one side all these are enablers and we are enjoying that enablement. Marketers, they are looking into as mode into these things as mode for supporting their efforts in terms of marketing. If you will look at technology, it is a composite enabler, or let us say an innovation in marketing process itself. Everywhere we have imbibed technology in terms of innovation goes, but when I would be talking about innovation in marketing process structurally, I would take you towards those examples where technology is used minimally and still effective marketing is being done. And those marketers, they thought that thing with lots of innovative perspective and confining themselves to a very good market in terms of size or in terms of returns. We would be going for such kind of examples. And then we would be going for such kind of examples which are completely enabled by technology, but then if everyone is doing that, then same commoditization, consolidation loop comes in. So, just bear with me till then, and you see, before that, one more thing which we must talk about. So, enablement is one, but repercussions are also there, and repercussions are associated with behavioral response. Connectivity, entertainment, OTT, communication, all these are symbols of individualistic response to these kind of stimuli. On one side, it's good that every individual must have one or two screens, so number of customers is growing in terms of as far as screens and let us say OTT or connectivity or communication or entertainment goes. So, earlier you had 5 or 4 people per screen and you were targeting them from all the sides, and one of this was working. Today you have one customer and everyone is targeting that customer and it is working for everyone. So, you have a larger pie, that is very true, but this everyone, this individual is alone now, isolated. That is a very different kind of a social perspective which is evolving, and that again is changing and redirecting the behavior. Some marketers would gain in due course of time, some would extremely lose in terms of as far as this situation goes. Should we be worried about who gains or who loses? Yes, we should be, because I told you earlier in the beginning of this subject that if we are not worried about the complete value chain starting from this point to that point, then ultimately whole of the value chain would suffer, and that is the idea of innovation in marketing. So, we should not be drawing the largest benefit for us, we should be thinking in terms of our benefit and the benefits of everyone throughout the value chain, even if the person or the stakeholder is distantly related to value chain. That should be the effort in terms of growing whole of the market. Market opportunity and market development is the fundamental responsibility of marketing, and that can only be done through innovation in marketing. Otherwise, commoditization and consolidation comes naturally, and in this case would come very fast because technology enables speed. So, that is one part. And you see, just on the lighter side, today we have lots of cameras, everyone is watching everyone, good for that matter. So, everyone is under a watch, so we can take care of people. But then it is the second part of this is that there is a lot of infringement in terms of personal spaces of people. It is very good that mobile phones, we are connected to whole of this world, but then I do not have my own space at all. You switch off the mobile phone, you speak something and mobile phone responds with a message. How is it happening? I would not be going into such details, you can find it out from anywhere. It is a common thing basically, that technology has connected everything, but infringed on everything many times. The point here is not that what technology does or does not do. The point here is that what would be the behavioral response we would have in against this perspective. For example, on one side I am very happy that I am connected with whole of this world, but after a stage would I be very unhappy with this? If that is the thing, then that means we are not on the right track, and that is where we have to monitor the behavioral perspective. That is where right to be forgotten has come in, and people have started talking in terms of right to be forgotten. So, you see, social media has done so much of good in terms of connecting people, but social media is actually doing many things or enabling many things wherein behavioral response is important for us to understand. YouTube is there. I admire this platform wherein we have everything. You do not have to go for anything apart from, you just search for the right video and you have to serve that basically, and then you create your own list and so on. Wonderful. So, that is one advantage, but then you have everything on YouTube, and while searching for what you want, you happen to find many things, and especially in terms of OTT, if you are surfing, the algorithm starts directing you towards few things. That is good, that is intelligent, but then probably you get directed towards something which you should not be, and your behavioral response starts getting diverted towards that. It is a complex scenario, but at this moment we are just focusing upon stimuli and influencers. So, you see, on one side it enables, on the other side it increases skepticism, and it does so many things which at the end of the day marketers would not desire for. Here I am just focusing upon consumer behavior perspective of as far as whole scenario goes. So, and then before I go for as far as the internet based scenario goes, you see, then there are financial systems. This is one of the most pivotal things which have been initiated in terms of as far as influencers go. Plastic cards, plastic money. I was talking to my team members and my associates this morning and lightly mentioned this fact that most of the times, if you practically realize that whole of the world is carrying some kind of plastic card or plastic money at this moment, and if it is credit card, it implies that you are under some credit, big or small whatsoever. So, you are indebted to someone. That is good, I do not know. So, that is the perspective of as far as the whole situation goes. Now, that debt increases and may lead to subprime crisis as in the case of 2008. So, that can also happen. Is it good for the marketers? No. Whole of the financial industry wrote off so much of accounts those days. So many houses went waste. So many people drowned, got drowned under so much of debt. That kind of a devastation would be accounted for in times to come. And I would be talking about COVID-19, just now. Then there is climate, this changing climate and our behavior in accordance to the climate. Then there is fragmentation in terms of households, the kind of households we used to have and the kind of households we have now. Does it changes the behavior? It does. So, and I would not be actually counting upon what it has done to us, that we can talk about in due course of time, and I would be mentioning about innovation in marketing and how it is to be done. Then I would be mentioning on which stimuli generates what kind of behavior response and how marketers should be looking at it positively in terms of driving innovation all through. Urbanization, it is good, but to what extent, and what it has done in terms of, and I am not denouncing urbanization, I am talking about what urbanization has done in terms of our behavioral perspective, how it is affecting us. And then on the lighter side, or one different side, I should not say lighter side, sorry, but different side, leadership, icons whom we admire. We have few, we have one or two. Shouldn't we be having larger number of people whom we admire? That brings in a lot of influence in terms of as far as behavioral response goes, because that influences us to choose probably the professions that might affect in terms of the education industry goes and so on. And then comes in content, school books, and so many influences are there. And you see, that is the paper I was talking about in terms of as far as internet driven change in consumer behavior goes, wherein Professor Seth talks about that it has promoted co-creation, geographic versus universal availability, self-access versus intermediary, information flow and information based decision making, fixed versus flexible times, closed versus open pricing, bricks versus clicks and bricks. You see these terms are quite self explanatory. reference is given to you. You can read this paper, it is very effective, and you see that is how this again scenario dwells into. There is another report, I should say, Closing the Gap, a marketer's guide to digital evolution, wherein consumers have redefined the idea of negotiation. Consumers are less loyal, consumers are in control, consumers are researching products and services differently. Consumers to consumer recommendations are key driver of preference, and travel is one of the travel, hotel, airlines, these are one of those industries which are largely influenced by these kind of things, consumer to consumer recommendations. Consumers are now building their own solutions and evaluating across unrelated product service categories and so on. So, you see these kind of things have evolved in due course of time, wherein consumers, as I said, is larger control now. How consumer behavior has reached to this kind of a situation, what marketers should be doing about this is very interesting. Please try to read these kind of reports, we have given you the reference, and try and also analyze the perspective around as far as whole of the scenario around what Professor Seth has talked about in terms of co-creation and those kind of elements. And when we talk about internet driven changes, or let us say what this brand hook report says, then there is an interesting element of another thing which is talked about by Professor Seth, the transformation of consumer behavior in digital era, wherein he talks about few elements which says that in 2023 the number of internet users worldwide stood at 5.18 billion, which again is an influencer in itself. We still have to analyze what it has done in terms of our behavioral perspective. How we are looking at products, leave aside life for a moment, because both of these things are interconnected. For example, your life defines the kind of product choices you would make. For example, if somehow you are focusing upon time and more output, you would not be cooking at home, and these are very commonly talked about things. So, you would be looking at fast food and so on. So, simple analogies. And you see there are 692 million internet users in India at the start of 2023. 54% of social browsers use social media to research products. You can find further data and details from the resources which we have mentioned here. This section, which I would be continuing briefly in my next session, I would be specially devoting some time on COVID based kind of behavioral changes which COVID era has brought on us. This would largely be associated with recollecting what happened to us in due course of time and how we would keep on behaving the way we started during COVID era. What are those evident changes and some of the sublime hidden changes which COVID brought on us. Till then, just try and think in terms of these two resources which I have mentioned in front of you: web based marketing, the coming revolution in marketing thought, wherein these 6 elements have been enumerated by Professor Seth. Then this report, the digital a marketer's guide to digital evolution, and then again from the same article of web based marketing, these few statistics, complement these statistics from the other sources as well. Try and find out that if this keeps on going rampantly, what is going to happen in terms of several industries which you see around yourself: automotive industry, food industry, housing industry, medicine industry, pharmaceutical and healthcare, and so on. Try and just enumerate those things, just write the name of the industry on the white paper and try and find out what internet or connectivity and these kind of things are doing to these and would keep on doing to these. And when we say keep on doing to these, that means in terms of our behavioral response in relation to these industries and internet. That is what specifically we should think of. I would be coming back to you with a discussion on COVID-19 driven changes in consumer behavior, and that this research again is published in Journal of Business Research, and author is Professor Jagdish Seth, a very big contributor in the field of consumer behavior, one of the icons in this field. I definitely recommend you to visit his videos and website and read his book as well. So, I will be coming back to you in the next session, would start it from COVID-19 driven consumer behavioral changes, and then we would traverse together into the next section of innovation in marketing before we reach to marketing of innovation. Look for me in the next video. Till then, goodbye.